Benga. Is so important to have you here today to talk about GMO, looking at how controversial the issue is. So I'll quickly make a brief introduction, then introduce you, give you, you know, a few minutes for you to properly introduce yourself and your expectation about today's event, right? So I'll just go straight into that. Um, okay, everyone, I welcome you to the Last Gidi Farmer podcast, the platform dedicated to educating, enlightening, and also empowering stakeholders in Nigerian agriculture. In today's very special episode, we are addressing one of the most important and debated topics in Nigerian agriculture today: genetically modified organisms, aka GMO. So the big question many are asking is, are GMOs the promising solution to boost food security, food production in Nigeria, or do they come with risks and require careful scrutiny? So to help us explore this topic with clarity and depth, we are honored to welcome one of Nigeria's and Africa's most respected voices in agronomy and sustainable agriculture. Our guest today is no other than the renowned Professor Olugbenga O. AdeOluwa, a distinguished professor of soil fertility and organic agriculture at the University of Ibadan, where he has taught and conducted research for over 2 decades in the Department of Agronomy. So he is also the coordinator of the Organic and Agroecology Initiative called ORAIN, and serves on the board of several national and regional organic agriculture organizations, including the Network of Organic Agriculture Researchers in Africa. So through these platforms, Professor AdeOluwa, has been at the forefront of promoting ecological farming system, soil health improvement, and safe production across Nigeria and Africa, and has led, anti-GMO rallies, and be talking about it on the dailies and media. So in this episode today, we'll be addressing GMOs in Nigeria. Is it a promise or a poison? So Professor AdeOluwa will share his practices on, the science behind GMO crops currently approved in the country, the promised benefits, as well as important health, environmental, and socioeconomic consideration, and the potential role of agroecology and organic agriculture as sustainable pathways for Nigeria's food system. So, Professor Olugbenga AdeOluwa, you are welcome.
Thank you, my moderator. Thank you.
Yeah. So you can give us a brief introduction, your
Thank you.
expectation for.
I think you have said more than I would have said. Yes, the issue of GMO in our food system, not just in Nigeria, but at the global space, is a concern to many. And then one of the reasons why this is a concern is that some smart people they try to take advantage of others, that are not that intentional when it comes to healthy living, through healthy food consumption and the healthy environment. And then you're talking about multinational companies, that take advantage of lack of information from the part of consumers, even policymakers. So and we have, this is not the first time it will happen. That has been the attitude for ages. Because most times, somebody defines business as what you know that others don't know. That's business, So you can have shady business and you can also have good businesses. So once you take advantage of others from the perspective of what they don't know, then that's business or attitude or action. Then, especially if what they don't know may have implications, either to their perceived psychological or health, well-being, then you're taking advantage of them. So, and this is the dimension we see the genetically modified organisms, acronym GMOs.
Thank you so much, Professor Olugbenga, for the brief. to remind the audience, today's discussion is divided into four important parts. Where in the first part, he has briefly introduced himself and is going to talk about, also address the basic and science of GMO. And in the second part, we consider the benefits and evidences, uh, looking at the risks and concerns as well. And in the third part, we look at the agroecology and other alternative. And in the last part, we consider the policy and future for GMO in Nigeria. So I'd like to go on with the first question of the day. Professor, you have had over 90 years, cast in the field of soil science. You have served and still serve at high-level boards of organic, agroecology, and sustainable farming system in Nigeria, Africa, Europe, and you hold many certificates, that distinguish you as prominent leader in these fields. So could you share your journey in agronomy and soil fertility? Like, what shaped it? What inspired your strong advocacy for organic agriculture, agroecology, and healthy food system, especially in the Nigerian context? Thank you.
Thank you very much. You are raising a question that touches my, that touches me deeply. To be candid, I'm one of those people, maybe in Nigeria, or many other developing countries, that have found themselves in agriculture, not by choice, but maybe by circumstances, either unintended circumstances or divine circumstances. I'm one of those. The reality there is that I never liked agriculture. In the secondary school days, to the glory of God, at least I was not an average student.
Hmm.
I was one of those, aspiring for, distinguished courses or professions like, in the medics. I didn't like engineering anyway, but I wanted to be, to be in the medics, whether as a doctor or a pharmacist. But I tried and I tried and I tried. And in Nigeria, we call the exam JAM, JAMB, Joint Admission Matriculation Board Examination. So we will say that JAM did not jam me well. So eventually, I somebody advised me, because I was studying food tech. I chose not to go for degree. I chose one of the courses that I had in mind as an alternative from secondary school. That if medicine and pharmacy wouldn't go through for me, then I would rather go for what I like. And I chose. Then I had in mind food tech or lab tech, and in those days, they were known for polytechnics. So I put in for food tech, and then our poly, which is now was given polytechnic. So it was during one of the times I went for my IT that I met someone from a university studying food tech. Now was one, so the guy interacted with me. It was in 400 level. I was going to ND2. So and in our interaction, he said, "Guy, you're not a police staff. You should cross over to university to study food tech." I said, "No, for me, I wouldn't study food tech in the university. No mercy, no pharmacy, no degree." So he advised me and I changed. So I changed my mind. So I actually went to university. I crossed to university to study food tech. That was University of Agriculture then, now Federal University of Agriculture. I got there thinking that in 200 level, as I was promised, that I will be able to cross over to food tech. But eventually, that dream did not materialize because I was later informed that since I did not write mathematics in my jam, it is allowed my crossing to food tech. So I actually met myself in agriculture, well, I'm frustrated anyway. So I pushed through, but I never appreciated agriculture until after, maybe after my master's. Yes, it was after my master's, that I, saw a great thing that Okomo Oil Company was doing. And that was what changed my perspective about agriculture. And now
Wow.
to the space of organic agriculture. when I got employed in the University of Ibadan in 2005, I was residing at Abeokuta, and weekends I would go home. So one of these weekends, Fridays, as I was about to go home, I requested one of my students to get me green vegetables that I could take home with me, that from Ibadan to Abeokuta. So she now told me, because I directed her to the place she should purchase the vegetables. So she now informed me that, well, when I was passing through the place yesterday, I saw the vegetables being sprayed. I witnessed spraying of the vegetables with chemicals. And it's the same vegetables being sold today. Should I still go ahead to get the vegetables for you? What she told me was like an hammer struck on my head. And I told her, well, thank you for the information. That if my first degree was in agriculture, my master in agriculture, my PhD, I wouldn't be able to raise safe vegetables for my family, if not for myself. We had a child there, so if we couldn't, then it wouldn't be out of place if somebody forced the chemicals down my throat, not just pouring on the vegetables, because I would have failed my society, and so that, gave me a kind of a prompting with it, to pay more attention to what organic agriculture is, because I want to contribute to safe food society. I mean, safe food systems in my society. Sincerely speaking, that was the beginning for me.
Thank you so much for that, Professor. That was really inspirational, and I'm happy to hear that what you do today is really for impact itself. And many times we don't really appreciate uh, the field we are in or what we are doing until we go through them. Then we get to appreciate them. So I'm happy that this is your case and you're able to expand the whole understanding into something meaningful to be able to deliver impact education for people today, right? So I'm sure that people listening to us, the audience, and they are able to gain one or two things from this to actually direct their career, right? And we have some people saying hi in the comment section. Mary Jacinta is saying hi. So I'll move on to the next question. Um, from leading rallies like the GMO Free Nigeria in Ibadan to grazing interviews on dailies and giving guest lectures and writing publication about GMO. So what personal experiences or observation have shaped your views, of GMOs as a threat to public health? I know you spoke about you seeing a fresh food and it's been sprayed with chemicals and it doesn't sit right with you, right? I'm sure that that wouldn't be it alone. There must be some other things that, actually led you to say, no, we have to conduct rally against these things. That is not right. And, people must get to know, have balanced understanding education of this.
Well, now when it comes to GMO, I belong to the organic movement, not just in my country, Nigeria, but Africa, the global space. And then one of the rule of thumb for in organic and agroecology is no to GMO. And the concern is why would great organizations, great movements with millions of people saying no? So that's the first concern. As a scientist, and then we believe in innovation, whatever we can do, to solve our problems of society, to make more food available. So, and that made me more curious as to finding out, what is the use about this GMO?
Mm.
So, and that was it, so, but the root is that organic agriculture movements and, not just movement, policies, whether public or private policies, agroecology, whether public or private, whether public or private policies, they say no to inclusion of GM in their operations. So it's not just about the private sector. is inclusive of the public sector. And then if this is the case, now this one takes us to the roots of the policies, of the principles of health, which organic agriculture pushes, that whatsoever will compromise the health of the consumers, or the environment, or the biodiversity, etc., shouldn't be what should be found in organic and agricultural systems. And that is the foundation.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Yeah, thank you so much for that, Professor. So we want to make this as balanced as possible on education itself. Let's get into understanding what exactly is GMO. This is one of the basic things that actually confuses people, right? Because there's a whole lot of misinformation, disinformation, propaganda around this thing that those that are not initiated into the science field, they are not able to, properly understand. And one way or the other, their conscience, their understanding and adoption is being lobbied around, right? So let's I like to ask, what are GMOs exactly? How do they differ from traditional breeding or gene editing like the Chris how we have experts say, oh, it's just gene transfer, not DNA alteration, that genetic modification has been occurring in nature. The food we eat today are not different from, the food we eat today are different from their ancestors as a result of gene improvement, similar to genetic modification. So, from your expertise, I want you to, give us a true depiction of what GMO is. What this expert they say is it really true that um, GMO occurs naturally? And I just want you to educate us on what GMO is exactly.
Okay, thank you. Yes, GMO, we call it this is genetic engineering, or genetically modified organisms. That's actually GMO. These are organisms whose genetic material, DNA or RNA, has been altered using genetic engineering techniques. And most times this involves introducing genes from one species into the DNA of another species, to introduce new traits or characteristics. So, and when we're talking about this, we have different types of GMO. We have the transgenic organisms, which occurs when organisms that have been genetically engineered, or organisms have been genetically engineered to express genes from another species. For example, you have genes from animal kingdom into the plant kingdom. The second one is cisgenic organisms. In this case, we talk about organisms that have been genetically engineered to express genes from the same species or closely related species. And the third one is gene-edited organisms. We have organisms whose genes have been edited using techniques such as the CRISPR, /CAS9. But in the real sense, you see, the reality there is that the the changes in the genes is not the same as the modification. So that's what the people in the business world, especially those manufacturing or those into the business of GM, use to confuse people. This reminds me of a case, when I was a short time I spent in Germany during my the lab part of my PhD, and I saw on a billboard a tobacco company, an advert of a tobacco company. Two elderly people, very elderly, very very elderly. They were smoking, and it was written, that smokers are liable to die early. You understand? That was the billboard of that tobacco company. And they wrote it. It's the rule all over the world now is that tobacco, you are free to take tobacco, if you choose it, but it must be written that smokers are liable to die early. But now you saw the picture of very elderly one. So that's trying to make a mockery of, that global policy. You understand? And then to, maybe send a wrong message or a different message to youth. You understand? The same thing also is happening when it comes to this GM. The major concern of populace generally when it comes to GM is this transgenic organisms. That is the major concern. So it is not that we don't have changes in genetic makeup or organisms, that even in humans, we do over the time. General, biological multiplication. You have genes from one families to other ones crossing whatsoever. So we have been living with it. But has anybody come to raise an issue concerning that? But when you have transgender in human beings, don't we shout against such? It's the same. It's the same. So most times the whole truth is not put on the table for people to consider. So the major concern when it comes to GM is the transgenic, part, which has to do with inserting genes from another kingdom into another kingdom, from animal to human. Because the concern of people generally is that that is against nature. Like if I want to eat plants, let me eat plants. Let me know that it is plant I'm eating. If I want to consume animals, let me know that it's animal that I'm consuming. You understand? That is it. So it's just about the right of the consumers to have access to what they feel is okay for them, either based on feelings, based on their religious, orientation, or anything they consider healthy for them. So I can pause on that by the time maybe later we go into, what are the sides, the two sides of
Yeah.
GM.
Thank you very much, Prof. That was really, really enlightening. Having to understand the basic about GMO and what is the main issue, the transgene itself. Like our professor has explained, we have for GMO the transfer of gene from another species or another um, order in the animal in the plant and animal kingdom, like you are transferring from plants to animal or from animal to plant, and we have another one that you are transferring from animal to animal, plant to plant related species, but the one that causes raises concern more is the transgene. So I'd like to ask you a follow-up question to this, Prof. Now, based on my understanding of the DNA, right? We have the DNA itself, and on the DNA we have strands of the genes. Right now, you are removing a particular gene away from the strand, and now inserting another gene entirely from another. Is not, let's say you are trying to modify an animal, but you are now bringing a gene from a plant inside. Does it not lead to like the genomic um configuration of that particular animal? Wouldn't there be like a disruption in the internal component and expression of the phenotypic properties, right? Is one of the argument that people are making that no, we've seen changes as this. So I'd like to ask you, is there any possibility for this?
Well, thank you very much. You have said it all. Those arguing that yes, we have been living with this, for times, or time immemorial rather. The concern is that will nature one day introduce species from genes from animals, animal kingdom to plant kingdom? And the answer is as good as yours. It's no. It's human interventions that actually lead to that. It's deliberate. So, and once you do that, the concern of many is that, you see, it is said that you are what you eat. You are what you eat. Whether you cook it, you don't. Most times people say once you have cooked anything, you have, consumed, you have denatured. You see, one you can denature the physical outlook, but the biochemistry, you cannot denature biochemistry. You cannot. You cannot denature biochemistry. You cannot say that because you have cooked a poisoned food, you have cooked very well, then it's safe to eat. You understand? You cannot. You cannot say that because you have cooked, a pork, you have cooked very well, and it's safe, for consumption for a Muslim. You understand? You can't say that. There are more to what we eat, than the transient nature, of science. You understand? So there's more. Even scientifically, we know, that once you alter the genetical makeup of, an organism, especially transferring from different kingdoms to other, you have the tendency of multiplication of these within that system, and nobody knows. Nobody knows what could happen thereafter. Nobody knows. So there are a lot of research, whatever that we result that we have, the common one, is that of the weeds. A scientist raised it not so long, maybe about 2 years ago, 3 years ago, that you will observe that they improve, and for some years now, there's been a sharp increase in the rate of diabetics globally, which was not the case when there was not when the improved variety of wheat was not available. But when this super wheat in quotes was introduced, yes, the yield increased astronomically, but the other side of it, which is the biochemistry of it, the nutritional biochemistry, is the effects that this gene produces. I'm not a medic, but with the little that I've read and I've listened to, most of the whatever we consume are processed by our internal organs, the liver, the kidney, and the rest. So, and that's where you have most of these chemical reactions taking place. So, it's been said that the increase in diabetics has been linked to these high yielding varieties of wheats. And the lady that said this explained the chemistry, explained about chemistry, and that's the concern. So there's so many of these interventions, which mostly, they are commercial oriented. They are made, all those interventions are there to make money, resources for the companies producing them. And the concern is that, yes, they are promising, but what are the likely negative resultant effects of consuming this? Nobody wants to be a guinea pig to what could be, a lifetime failure. Nobody wants. And so that's the reason why we're shouting that currently we don't have sufficient data, long-term data, 10 years, for example, of people consuming this, and that there is no negative effects. We don't have. Most long-term research, even 10 years is the minimum. That you have that. The same thing happened to the issue of glyphosate. When glyphosate, was introduced, it was like, this was the solution to the problem of weed control globally. I remember that should be early, around that 2012 or 2014 thereafter, or something. I read an article of a particular scientist that raised the issue that he observed that mice fed with feed produced with glyphosate had tumors in their system. But you know what? Shortly thereafter, the publication, the publication house that produced the journal, was prosecuted, and that the scientists must withdraw the journal. The pressure also came from the institution of the scientists, and the journal was, withdrawn. But as the reality not shown himself now, what Bayer is passing through 20 years after, the reality has come forward. So many cases of cancer has been linked with so you can see this is the same thing we are we are clamoring against, that we don't have sufficient long-term research to prove that these GMOs are actually safe. That we don't have. So that is it.
Thank you, Prof, for going in depth on that. It's really um, educating, and I like that you were able to back it up with solid facts and research, right? Because I too have been doing my research as well. I got to know of one GMO soybean, right, in the US, where um, when they, altered the gene, fine, it was doing fine, was able to resist herbicides, but the nutritional component went down. It wasn't like it would have, the oil and all that. And I got to know of another GMO occurrence, in Africa itself. I think it's Burkina Faso. They had this very fantastic cotton, one of the best, or should I say, the best in the world. For the fiber length and the fineness of the fiber itself, right? So, but the problem is that they had this bollworm cotton problem that was always, attacking the cotton balls, right? But when they introduce, another gene into it, to resist those pests, and they started having that, the cottons were doing fine, but the fiber length and the quality of the cotton was now very, very poor. So at the end of the day, they lost that market and lost significant revenue. So that is the impact of that gene modification in that particular value chain, right? That particular commodity, right? So it baffles me when they say when you introduce gene into a particular crop, it doesn't change the composition of that crop, right? Now you have said it all that there is no long term, verified studies to actually say that GMO is very safe for consumption, right? And this is even this publication that you said that was tussle on and it was later withdrawn was, in developed economies, right? So now when we look at developing and emerging economies that don't have the strong, how will I put infrastructure to actually vet these GMO processes and actually say that based on what we know, we want to reject, they are not able to resist the great lobby organization, then that could be a problem, this population being guinea pigs. But we'll come back to that. But I want to go on to another question. You've talked about the risks of GMO to humans, animals, the incidence of cancer, incidence of, diabetes and all that. But I want you to come back to the ecological risks of GMO itself. So in your lecture titled Organic Farming, a Panacea to Failing Human and Environmental Health at the 10th Ben Emmanuel Alayonde Memorial Distinguished Alumni Lecture, you emphasize working with nature in organic systems. So I want to ask you that, how does GMO technology contrast with that, potentially disrupting natural genetic processes? That is there an ecological risk, to GMO application, adoption, and commercialization? I'd like to hear your thoughts on that.
Okay, thank you very much. First, maybe we talk about the effect of the GM on the ecology first. So, and you said, you said it, once you have GM, let's talk about crops, for example. You see, the owner of the gene, which is the identity of the crop, is the owner of the crop. The owner of the gene in a crop is the owner of the crop. It's like human. God forbid. Maybe someone, a lady, was raped, and eventually the issue led to a child, and the child resembles the person that raped. If the resemblance is so attractive, that one day the person may come forward to to claim the child. I'm just looking at the negative situations. And there's nothing you want to tell. The child may reject the person as a father, but within the child knows that this is my father. You understand? But if the father at that point had become, maybe a very rich, a prominent person who was whoever, and that becomes an advantage to the child. They say, after all, maybe it happened by accident, and then this man has said, sorry, mom, please. So the mother is, it will be disadvantaged. I mean, that is nature. So when it comes to seed, wherever you have the GM seed raised, if by reason of pollination, the pollen grains crosses other, other seeds, other whatever, and it results in the gene. If that seed is checked and, is linked to the patented line by reason of seed law, the GM companies own that seed. So, for example, it is possible, if we are not careful in Nigeria today, that all seeds of maize in Nigeria today could be claimed by a company. It's possible. And the way out is just to blindfold our farmers, blindfold, our policymakers, and say, this is don't worry, you'll be getting 1 ton or 2 tons of yield of maize. This is a miracle one to give you 10 tons. You have more. We are not even selling. It's for free. That's the way rice was introduced to us. That's the way fertilizer was introduced to us, for free. And our farmers, they don't care. They just plant, plant whatever. In the next 2-3 years, your seeds have become, another company seed. By the time they test you to court, and it's tested, the grains all over. So we stand with chance, of losing the right to our seeds if we are not careful. And God knows this. You can say, as a country, you have the sovereignty, what the world. It's an international court somewhere there. And there are laws, scientific laws, and policies. And that's what we should be careful about. That's for the ecological side of it, which is also financial, which is also, economic. Okay, that should be of concern to us as a country and as a people, if we are not even looking at it from the perspective of health. So now, are there options that we have, for safe production of it? There are so many. There are so many. In this part of the world, that I am, I'm a Yoruba person, there's an adage, which I will say in English, that before corn arrived in this world, that hen, chicken, they have been feeding us something. And that's the reality. So, I have, I'm presenting just 10 of those options that have the, the probability and the potentials of also delivering sufficient food for the population. One, conventional breeding is there, which is the traditional breeding techniques to develop crop varieties. What this does is to transfer the genes of a particular the pollen or whatsoever, cross the genes of the two crops or even animals, but they are of the same species. But you have a trait that is very fantastic in this, and the one, whatever now, and you change. I'm sorry to also still use human. It happens in humans. Most ladies, they want to marry tall. If they are short, they want to marry tall, guys, so that their children will not be tall, they'll be short as they have. It's the same. So when you observe a nice characteristics in particular one, then you see this one. When you cross, after some time, you will have one parent, one that will consistently give you that specific traits. So it's by nature, it's natural. Secondly, you have marker-assisted selection. This uses genetic marker to select desirable traits. This is not taking genes from another kingdom and inserting into another kingdom, but a particular gene that's been known for a particular trait is marked. And there are right technologies to trace these genes, as it crosses into another, genes. And from there, you know this one, that this is this. That's the reason why today, I'm actually, doing this from home. Behind me, where, I have some dwarf pawpaw. They are beautiful. They taste fantastic. I like them. For me, that is pawpaw. The red layer is pawpaw. I'm not marketing for the for the company that produce it. You will constantly see short, and then if you plant the same seed over time, you will see the parents, you will see the tall ones, you will still see the short ones, you will see the middle, you will see these are the parents that the breeders actually interacted, their genes, to get the short ones. So there are, so they also have agroecology, which focuses on farming practices, biodiversity, and ecological services. In agroecology, we preserve the ecosystems. That's why we encourage farmers seed saving. Your traditional seed or seed that you have found good, that you can save as a farmer. And from there you can also share, or multiply. So we do that one. Then in organic system too, of course, the laws in organic system is that no to GM, no to pesticide. Because most times, the selling point of most GM companies is that in most of the GMs, especially crops, they are global pesticide resistant, which means you plant them, you can also apply pesticide. But what people often forget something, that for the fact that the plants are able to resist the pesticide, like herbicide, does not mean that the plants have not imbibed, they are not taking in these herbicides. It's there. And you'll find these in the consumable parts, which can eventually harm the consumers. They are there. And that's why we are having increase in cancer and other organ failures today. Mutation breeding is there, which uses natural processes, to induce genetic mutations, like AIDS, like heart, whatever, like this situation, like AIDS resistance or drought resistance, can be by mutation, which are natural processes. You have gene editing, which are using techniques like a CRSPR, to edit genes without introducing foreign DNAs. They are allowed, they are natural. So we are not saying that organic or agroecology is against technology. No, there are safe technologies. What we are saying no to is picking genes from animal kingdom and introducing it into kingdom. That's what we are saying. So what about traditional crop improvement using local varieties and farmer-led selection? Usually we tell farmers, when you want to raise your crop, look for good and vibrant crop or fruits. Then once you have that one, the tendency is that the seed from such, will produce vibrant seed, and high yields. And what about sustainable agriculture that emphasizes environmental stewardship, social responsibility, and economic viability? What about hybrids? Cross through traditional breeding, targeting desired traits. We have that, so there are so many of such. Even with the one we call heirloom varieties, the one that preserves and promotes traditional crop diversity. So we have many of such alternatives, that are natural, that cannot be contested by, even science is open these days. If you put all these things, what are the side effects of this in AI today? You have this. It's no longer hidden that until I call a professor in agriculture or in breeding that can have this information, they are all available today. It's just the interpretation that may be deeper when you have someone that specializes in this.
Thank you so much, Professor, for giving us, for not only talking about it, but also giving us alternatives that we can actually exploit. And just to quickly mention them to the audience, so they are abreast with them. The first one, conventional breeding. Second one, marker-assisted selection. Then agroecology, organic system, mutation breeding, gene editing, using local varieties and crop selection, and also hybrid. So I like that you were able to expose us to how these GMO seeds could contaminate local seed, such that we might not have pure local seeds anymore. I was listening to a story whereby a farmer actually gave his fellow farmer seed to plant, and people were like, "You're foolish. Why would you give the other farmer your seed to plant?" He said that if I don't give him the seed to plant, his inferior seed is going to contaminate my seeds because they have been contaminating them and have been having lower yields, right? So this is the case here. And one thing that I noticed that I didn't talk about, I want you to expatiate on that, is if we could be having sterile seeds with the adoption of GM, because I'm conversant with what is happening in India, the GMO suicide related issue where the farmers, they adopt GMO. At the end of the day, they are not able to replant because I think the seeds are non-replicable, so they have to buy seed again from the GMO company. So it's more like they are indebted to them, right? Is that the case that GMO comes with the implication of having sterile seeds and having to depend on GMO selling companies? And the other part that I would like you to talk about is the issue of super weeds. What are super weeds? You've mentioned that when we apply these pesticides to the weeds, it's not like they are just resistant to it. At the end of the day, they still absorb those chemicals, and when humans consume them, it causes all these and debilitating diseases, cancers, and all that. But what is super weed itself? I like to know.
Well, maybe I start from the first questions. That the kind would GMO seeds be sterile? It may not always be sterile. The technology for the sterile technology is a different technology entirely. So there's a way to do that one. Not necessarily being GM. That's just because not necessarily being GM. It is possible to have GMs that you can replant. So this technology of producing sterile crops, or seeds, is actually a different thing entirely. So most time it comes from selection. They
Okay.
have means of another technology entirely. So it may not necessarily be so, but it's also possible that so a GM company may choose to add that through their production in order to safeguard their rights, to make sure that you always come back to them. Even if you don't, The law, the seed law, law globally stipulate that you don't have the rights to plant the seed again. That any seed that you generate from your farm that is patented, you must have permission of the company that sold it to plant again. That's the law. That's the international law. Okay, so it is when the breeders they are not philanthropists too. All those breeding companies, the seed company, they are not philanthropists. They are there to make business. So it is when they think that these people they want to outsmart us. We have released one. They won't come back to us. I said no problem. We also give you what will make you to come back to us again and again.
So it's actually a strategy.
It's a strategy. It's a
Oh,
strategy. So then, the issue of the super wheat. The issue of the is supernatural. We have in humans. The more the government of a particular place, try to clamp down on crime, and if there are no good alternatives, what do we have? Super, super crimes. So that's the way it works in nature. So most times, once you use the GMOs, they come, with a package of the herbicides that you must use, etc. Yes, they may control, and then those herbicides actually coded for some herbs, so for some weeds. But after you have eliminated such, you have by nature does not allow vacuum. You have some weeds that might be a little bit not resilient before. You see them just having the right environment to thrive, and just see them. Go and check the most farmers field where they use herbicide regularly. Those are the kinds of weeds you see there. Most herbicide wouldn't control these ones. And it takes just about 2-3 years for you to see these weeds. There, all around us, we check. Visit any farmer's field, on herbicide. For in just 2-3 years, you see strange weeds that the herbicide will not. And it's normal in nature. For those of us from this part of the world that we have problems of malaria, spread by mosquitoes. So you see the malaria, drugs, or medications are changed from time to time because you have these, organism causing this resistant to, some specific one, medications, and it has to be changed. So it's the same in nature. Is the name is statement. So that now you were told that the best thing that you should do is to sleep on that net, which is a natural thing. So prevent this mosquito bites, by sleeping on that net, etc. And that some companies, pharmaceutical companies, will not be happy that you are blocking, their businesses. What we need to know generally is that the major players in promoting most of these societal, products, etc., they are actually the companies. They're the one that sponsor the scientists. They're the one that sponsor the advocates. They are the one that sponsor policymakers to say it is safe. They are the one that sponsor. There are facts and figures regarding this. Of course, not available in public space. They are the ones. They are the ones that, first of all, do a nice advert and tell you that this is very fantastic. If you have not used it, you are not there. This and that and that. Most of this is gimmicks. At the end, it's about, we say in our own terms in Nigerian, naira. At the global space, you talk about, dollar, pounds, and call it. So generally, these are the ones that are the real enemies of the society. I'm telling you.
Thank you so much for that. I also have, thought about the issue of the super weeds in line with the super bugs, right? We talk about the coronavirus and some other diseases that are now resistant to super diseases that are now resistant to, vaccines, and also, all these antimicrobial uh, drugs. So I was thinking, because there was this particular gene modification for cowpea itself, whereby they introduced the bacteria Bacillus thuringiensis,
Yeah,
right? Because the pest Maruca vitrata was always causing problem when the uh, cowpea bud is still green, it sucks it dry. So in that way, there's huge harvest lost, right? So my own question then was that, now what if, we are able to improve the resistance of this crop to Maruca vitrata, right? But later Maruca vitrata now develops resistance against that same um, action, biological action. What are we going to do? We will keep having this continuous cycle of having to improve, and having to introduce gene, improve, and that. So it's just like a very virtuous cycle that I don't understand.
yeah,
But that is that. And I'm looking at what you said, the seed company being powerful companies that sponsor the scientists and all that. So I'm looking at how this poses threats to the economy or the country of less powerful countries, right? And I'm looking at, I want to ask the question, based on your knowledge of the Nigerian biotech infrastructure, biosecurity infrastructure, do you think that we have the wherewithal, or if our system has not been compromised? Because we have countries, having these robust biotech biosecurity infrastructure, right? But they are saying no, we are not adopting and commercializing GMO. But Nigeria is leading that, and Africa is adopting that. What is it that we know that they don't know, or what is the problem? Is our infrastructure able to actually, you know, um, regulate these things, so we don't become guinea pigs? I'm scared here.
Thank you. Well, the major challenge, I would say, I'm sorry to say this is, sorry, but the major challenge is actually corruption. That's just the major challenge in our system, is corruption. So, and only not just here, it happens in many parts of the world. So, I will start from outside Nigeria that comes here, so that is, we don't think that it's only in Nigeria we have challenges. In some countries, I don't also want, because this is a global space, I don't want to be so specific, but you understand what I'm talking about. In many developing countries, companies actually sponsor research. If you are you are a lecturer, and you cannot attract grants, a time will come that you don't have salary. You are not paid, because most times you have to raise your fund to get your salary paid. So, the concern there is that and the companies are, they are business people. They want research that will give them what they can market, and that's where they get back the fund they are pushed into research. The researcher wants to, continuously have salaries, want to maintain his or her job in the university, in the research institute. So must dance to the tune of the company. The company is this, is that. I have one of my, someone that we have trained that was working in a particular company. I don't want to mention the name of the company, but eventually they're paying very fantastically. But it got to a time, had to resign, except for conscience sake. For conscience sake. You know, it's a seed breeding company. That's I cannot continue because most times they know, they see what others don't see. So I said, no, I would rather be jobless than to continue with this. So, and that's the reality. So, but now, when you have policymakers or scientists here, because, you know, once you have this, how much are we earning as lecturers here? And you have a grant from a company that will pay you 10 times of what you are earning as a lecturer on monthly basis. Then you think about it, well, there's no need to, you know, like our common language today, there's no need to japa. There is no need to japa. You know, that, you know, now you can have, you know, up to about maybe $10, then, you know, even if it's $5,000 on monthly basis as an additional income as a lecturer. You know, people say you will die there. You know, so that's what happens. You know, and then before you know it now, we tend to go with the compromising situation. So now come to our country, Nigeria. What do we know that these other countries rejecting these GMs don't know that makes us feel that we can contain this, that this can thrive in our system, this can assist our system to achieve food security? Sincerely speaking, maybe we don't know anything. Maybe what we know that they don't know is the money for our pockets, not the interest of the society. Maybe that's what we know that they don't know. Sincerely speaking, maybe that's what they know. Most of the ones we have in Nigeria, even the ones supposedly be from Nigeria, ask where did they get the funding for the research? Is it by Nigeria government? No. Has Nigeria government funded any research on GM? I'm not sure. I'm not aware of any. It comes from those companies from outside. But because of the nationalized means of a businesses in Nigeria, you have insider that will front, and that is the challenge that we have. So the reality there is that as we speak now, we don't have sufficient biosecurity policies in place. We don't have. Our food distribution systems, are very, very, porous. They are not traceable. You can't get to any common market today. You buy a grain of rice or maize, and you'll know who has raised this. You can't. There's no traceability. And if there's no traceability, which is the foundation of biosecurity, it's not just when the thing is planted on the field. It's not just the buffer zones expected on the field. What about the biosecurity within the distribution channels? So that anyone that wouldn't want to consume a particular crop variety has the choice of knowing what he or she is consuming. So that's it. So we are far from it. Either for livestock, either for animal, the cattle you buy in the market for your occasion, do you know the origin? Is there any marker? Is there any tracer to know the origin? No. So it's only God that is actually protecting us here. It's only God. A few days ago, just last week, I attended an event, and then we ate, and then the next day we diarrhea for many of us. And we sat down, analyzed, and traced it to one vegetable used for the last meal we took. That's the suspect, because all other ones are traceable, but this one that was purchased at the open market. I battled diarrhea for 2 days. So, who do you arrest? If you go to the market, this particular vegetable that we bought, they'll just look at you as if you're insane. And you are insane. You bought something in the market and you're looking for the producer. Yeah, we are not serious. We don't have the system to track, to trace such. We don't. So that's the challenge we have in Nigeria. I'm not talking about other civilized countries that they have systems in place, to mark distribution channels, but we don't have. So in a situation we don't have this, our marketing systems and food systems, they are so porous. So porous. So eventually, you may intend consuming what you don't want to consume. You may just like somebody said, we have been consuming GM food for long, whatsoever. So if by choice of your interest or your religious belief or social belief or your ethnical belief or ethnic belief that you don't want this particular thing, it is possible here that maybe you have been consuming such because the right of consumers against such, I mean, virtually, I would say that it's not existent. The right of consumers to such is not in existence. That's what I'm saying.
Ah, thank you so much, sir, for that. That was really, really expansive. And I've been following this GMO issue for some time. There was a time when the I think it was NAFDAC that actually said uh, across the country there are, I mean, in 16 states of the country, GMOs are being sold in the supermarkets, right? And but GMO were not, approved for sales. So it's very confusing. And later, there was another issue with one company like that. I don't want to mention the company importing of GMO feeds and all that, and it caused a big trouble at that time. At the end of the day, they said uh, they didn't import GMO feeds and they buried everything down, right? So it's just and we've had different anti-GMO organization coming on air on board and rally like the OMF. What other? There was a representative at the house then that was actually, lamenting and calling people attention that those that are actually meant to regulate biotechnology application for safety are actually in bed with GMO promoters and canvassers, to actually ensure adoption of GMO not only in Nigeria but also in Africa. So the compromise is huge. And recently, the Nigerian government, approved for release 57 new crop varieties. And what
Yeah,
people do not know that out of that 57 new crop varieties, I actually did my research. Six of those 57 new crop varieties were actually GMO, but people do
yeah,
not know that. So the the gap in communication is so huge and could be dishonest that people do not even understand what is going on. You just say that okay, we have approved 57 new crop varieties, they are doing this new nutrition resistant to diseases. How were those things, developed in the first place? And what was the procedure to develop it? Was the public aware and considered in the whole application process? At least there should be application process for that. Who is representing the public? What trials were being done? People do not really know this. So it's really confusing. And I want to ask you, you said that we are only left to God, but I don't want to believe that we have to leave all our situation to God, like we keep living and, everything in the country is going south. We pray that it improves, right? Like, what can individuals do? And, how do they tap into what organizations that you belong to and you chair, you lead, are doing to actually encourage agroecology, organic farming system, organic food, healthy food system? How can they key into that? What do we do? We don't want to be pacifist here and say, okay, we have taken defeat. There's nothing we can do. But at the end of the day, we will still be consuming food that we don't know the sources? How can we ensure, better traceability, safety with our foods?
Thank you very much. I see the first step is for those that have concerns about the food they consume to also lend their voices to the campaign against GM, at least in Nigeria. So, secondly, is to take a step. You see, no matter how small the area of land or facilities you have access to raise this, even if it's just vegetable, even if it's just whatever, no matter how small, you should do. Even if it's in pots. That 2000 and I think it was 2000, either 2005 or 2006. It's 2006. It was no, late 2000, it was late 2005. That was it around that time. That when I had to, we had to start growing vegetables at home. We were living in a place that everywhere was constructed, no open space for raging. I'm talking about the ground, everywhere concreted, and we were even in the upper floor. So in our barcoding that we got, we had plastics which we were using to raise vegetables. So no matter how small, you have an open place behind your water. Start doing something. The third one is that you need to guarantee your food intake the more. Then link up with organic systems. There are many of them. Many. The coalition that are the coordinator, the Organic and Agroecology Initiative, RAIN, in Nigeria. We have quite a lot of organizations in practicing organic culture there, even national, which we can link everybody to. So, and with that, you can have, and currently ORAIN is working on commodity development. Safe, started with a safe chicken, the one without antibiotics. And now we are working on cowpea. That at least in Nigeria, you can have access to safe cowpea, both for domestic production and also for exports. The process has started, and we're looking at other components one by one. Once we have the stakeholders in terms of the producers, we create a space for them where we bring the producers in contact with consumers. So we create the market space for them so that somebody can, order. And of course, before you can be a distributor, you have to go through certification. It's not just about it, because we're talking about quality guarantee systems that are in place in our distribution, in our production. Is either you are third party certified, or you are participative guarantee certified, PGS certified. So with that, we are able to trace the crops. We're able to trace challenges. You can know what you consume. You can know where your food, where your protein sources like chicken, etc., where your oil is coming from. Should you have any challenge, you know who to talk to. And this can be traced to the roots. So it's possible. There was a time somebody raised a challenge regarding some palm oil, that this one gave us problem, blah, 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 blah. And I addressed a particular company. Let's say, check your log, your log system. Check. And they checked, and thereafter they discovered that no, the one that gave them problem actually came from another system, not the company that they accused. So that's what we are talking about. So that's what we are talking about. This cannot happen with the common open marketing system that we have in Nigeria. No, we cannot. So you need to be a part of this. So once we are part of these various platforms, you can make your order, you can also produce, you can also learn how to produce. You can, so there's the opportunities are there. And we'll say that we are still, growing. But the tendency is that we do it well. We are firm on ourselves. Then we can become a pride of nations around us. That's it.
Thank you so much, Prof, for that on how to promote individual participation. And Prof has rightfully said you should lend your voice to causes campaign and pushing for healthy and safe food, and also should take the initiative to grow your own food. You can do something in your backyard. It's so easy to grow foods nowadays, and especially with innovative system that we have, sack farming, different things, planting, optimizing the space in your house, in your different homes to actually grow food, and also to link up with organic food system, like rain doing safe chicken without antibiotic vaccine and all that, and now incorporating um crops as well, like cowpea, wanting simple but nutritious foods, right? So I like, because we are coming to the end of the whole conversation. I've got just three more questions. We are um, already well in time, and my other question will be your um, advice to the government, what they can actually do like, how could they integrate organic and agroecology into national strategies, reducing chemical dependency and health burdens, and also actually uh, introduce policy that will enable safe food, traceability of food, and consumer awareness of what they eat.
Thank you very much. The first thing is the policy. The policy is in place, then we have bills. Even in countries where GM is allowed, like US, etc., they have policies for organic. They have, they have bills, they have their standards, and they have system of allowing organic food into their system through the USDA standard. They have that. So that's what Nigeria is supposed to do. So we started in the country started the move for the policy on organic about 4 or 5 years ago, which I initiated the process for the Federal Ministry of Agri and Food Security. Well, the process is still resting, which we think that should move further. And I know that some other organizations are also working on that of ecology, etc., with the various government, So, but one thing is to have the policy. The other thing is the implementation. The implementation, on organic agriculture and agroecological practices. I mean, it's not just about one ministry. It's a multi-dimensional, So you have multi-stakeholders, and actions for such. Agri is there, environment is there, trade and investment is there, local government is there, women, so many. In ORE, we work with about 11 federal ministries. Livestock is there. So that's because it's not just a single stakeholder event. No. So it should be the approach that our government should work with is not just a single, it should be an interministerial, approach. It should be an interministerial approach. So, and such should rather be under the presidency. So it shouldn't be domiciled in a particular ministry. Because once it's domiciled in a particular ministry, it is possible that ministry may, you have, what do you call it now? Conflict of interest in overshadowing others. But this should be an interministerial approach in addressing such. So, and you have that, and of course, if within that you also have the stakeholders, those that are for protection of human, rights, and then consumption, consumers' rights, etc. Should be there, and experts in the field, should be there, and with that, there can be robust, policies, whether for organic or agroecology, or we combine the two together. Just like Oren came up with a standard, national standard for organic and standard for organic and agroecology production in Nigeria. We combined, so that's my piece of advice. The current way that is being done in Nigeria, I don't think it will work well, because organic and agroecology cannot be domiciled in a specific ministry. You have issue of environment, you have issue of trade, production. So it's not just about production. It's not just, you have environment, you have trade, you have, other, there's quite, interdependent on other sectors.
Thank you so much for that, Prof. And I would like to ask two more questions. The first of the two is to actually ask for those that have been, considering organic system, and they are faced with con from the opposition that organic system is not sustainable. Like, people would say that if you have a pest situation on your farm, you could just actually, uh, put the pesticide in the knapsack, then spray, and it's very effective on a large scale. Now, do you have such efficacy for organic system on a large scale? And also talking about the inorganic fertilizer element like the NPK, where you put it into your soil, and your plants are able to absorb quickly and grow at a desired period, and you can uniformly harvest it. But when you are considering organic fertilizer like cattle, uh, should I say, rabbit, poultry manure, that it might not be as, it could be effective, but it might not be fast acting that you would have for the inorganic NPK, calcium fertilizer, and all that. What would you have to say to uh, you know um, people wanting to practice the organic farming system, but they are faced with this challenge? What is your advice to them?
Thank you very much. That's where knowledge works. You see, majority of people that come up with it, no, organic fertilizer is not that very effective. Organic this is not very effective. They are not knowledgeable about what organic is. Organic is not organic chemistry. Organic farming is not organic chemistry. Organic farming, agroecology is not talking about just environment. No, we are talking about systems, holistic systems that have its, from fork to farm regulations, templates as to what will make it work. That's it. I'm a practicing organic farmer. I'm not just an academic, I'm not just a researcher. If not because of this event now, I should be with my workers on the farm. So
Yeah, you
it's
did tell
actually
me. You did tell me. I'm sorry for taking your time, sir.
no. This is also providing, service, and to the populace, So, and then I also have to prioritize it. So I should be there, with them to see what they have done during the week when I was in my office. So it's a time for me to be with them, and then also provide guidance for what is on ground, So, and that's the reality. So, but majority just think that once you use organic fertilizer, you use organic whatever, that means you are in organic. No, it's not true. Visiting University of Ibadan and being a student at University of Ibadan are not the same. Taking notes of somebody that has gone to University of Ibadan, just maybe just like you, my brother, your notes. One of your people around you just gather your notes and they read, and that person claims that I also know what university of other people know. Is that can it work? That is the problem. You see, it's illiteracy. You can know illiteracy is not just knowing how to read and write. No, it's not just how to know how to read and write. That's the illiteracy. No, if you don't know how to interpret, how to apply what you have read, that's also illiteracy. So we can have literates, illiterates. And that is the problem we have in agriculture today. We have, for me, I keep on telling, I kind put, we don't have up to 5% of the even professors in agriculture today in Nigeria that have understanding of what organic agriculture and agroecology is. Take my words. We don't have up to 5%. I'm not talking about local professors, full professors of agriculture. Because once we are not, I was in that, in that shoe. My master's, my PhD, my research activities were in organic fertilizer. So I thought I knew until I got to a particular program where they were discussing organic agriculture, and I got lost. And I said, wow. So I thought I knew organic agriculture, but I never knew. So I have to, I was asking people, please, how do I get trained? So I can know the integrity. And I thank God for the opportunity granted me for training through OAD programs sponsored by Sweden. I got part of my training in organic culture, even in Israel, in Uganda, and other countries before I started practicing. And since then, I've been training so many other people. You understand? So whatever you have not been trained in, just applying such whatever may not work. If it is not working, there are many ways you can achieve fertility, soil fertility in organic system that will work from time to time. There are many ways you can control pests. In organic, we lay emphasis on prevention rather than control. The University of Ibadan, for example, is there. The Organic Garden, University of Ibadan, which God granted me the opportunity to pioneer for the university, is there. This garden has been there for more than a decade. We have never had any single infestation, it's a real breakout of disease or pest and disease on the farm. How is it achieved? If you maintain proper ecological rules, you will avoid this. How often do you have diseases and a pest and disease break out in our forest? How often? Because the ecological balance is there. So you can also strike the ecological balance within your farming systems. Where we have problems, most time, let's talk, for instance, the pest control. You have just 1 hectare of land. That 1 hectare of land, yes, is your own, you have purchased it. But you have some occupant there that are natural, they are the real owners. They are not paid, they are helpless. The time you bring your tractor to clear, some of them are killed, some of them run away, and those are the insects feeding on the natural whatever there, biomass there. Once you drive them away without factoring theirs into your system, then that's where the problem lies. So in organic, you have ways of having strips where the natural vegetation is still preserved. So when the land is disturbed a bit because of where you want to plant, the insects there, they migrate to that. They prefer their own natural food, what they are used to. It is when all those ones have been cleared and they don't have any other choice. That's when they descend on farmer's crop. And once they taste the farmer's crop and it's like it is better compared to theirs, they say, they say all things work together for good. Maybe it was better than the one we had initially was clear, and they start multiplying. And it's not the same way that we are losing our own indigenous fruits and vegetables to the exotic ones today. How many of our growing children know agalo as they know apple? How many? It's the same. So once we plan, you plan your farm very well. You do proper rotation. You are not just, do soul cropping the entirety of what you are producing. No, you leave strips. Those are the things being taught in organic and agroecological farming. You maintain the ecological balance. And once that is maintained, you will have less problems with pests and diseases. That's the way it works. That's how nature preserves itself, including fertility. When you should apply your fertilizers, when you should do this one, in case you have emergency, there are options of liquid fertilizers that you can apply that will give you almost the same effect as applying chemical fertilizers. You want to apply in huge area of land that are proven microbial products for fertility, for pest control today on the markets. Stores that can do well, comparable with, the conventional ones. We have gallons of results comparing, either for fertility or pest control, natural means, superior to this. But the challenge we have is that most of those research were not sponsored by the companies that produce such. You understand? So, because most times the companies will have the fund for right public, publicity, etc. Most times people also respond to publicity when they see that it's working. It's the same as believing. Same as believing. Once people see that it's working, they move towards it. But now I can tell you that we have more farmers utilizing the natural means for fertility and pest control now. It's increasing. Look at the issue of poultry manure. In those days, it's only meant for rural farmers. Oh, sorry, back here. But today, there is no where they raise poultry, where you have poultry farms in the southwest today, that you don't have one aboki that will have booked the manure. It has become a big trade. You see, trailers will bring tomatoes and pepper from the north. Will be going back with the manure in bales. Because the farmers there, they have discovered that, look, we have been cheating ourselves. That these manures work well for us compared to these chemical fertilizers. I consulted a particular organization, international organization, a few years ago, about 6 years ago. That took me to a place in Adamawa. I saw the best banana plantation I've ever visited in Nigeria. Beautiful, doing well. Not on large acreage of land, it was just 9 acres, but doing pretty well. When I expressed my, opinion, my, delights in the production to the owner of the farm, he shook his head. He said, what you are glad with now is nothing to compare to what you could have seen last year. And I asked him, what happened? He said, till last year, I was using poultry manure for my production. But this year, someone that has more money with me competed for the source. I bought all the poultry manures for my source, so I couldn't have access to it. And then all I could do was to purchase mineral fertilizers. And I noticed that my yield dropped. That what you are seeing is nothing to compare to what I used to get till last year. I said, wow. So even a common farmer knows the difference. So, and that's the reason why manure today has become a big business, even for the poultry producers. It's no longer a nuisance. They bag and sell. As of today, once we conclude now, I'll be taking some manures. So, to the farm, I purchased this. You understand? It works, even for conventional farmers. They have seen it works. But you must know the right time to apply this. The major challenge people have is lack of understanding in application. I mean, soil fertility in core profession in agriculture. So you don't apply organic fertilizers the same way you apply mineral fertilizers, and you think to work the same. No. There are ways you apply organic fertilizers that will work well and longer. And the reality with organic fertilizer is that if you apply them rightly and timely, it will not serve you alone in that particular year. It will serve you longer in that if you apply maybe 5 tons this year. Next year, you might not apply more than 2 tons. Upper year, you may not apply more than 1 ton. It will be reducing. It will be reducing because it will build up in the soil. That's what we also talk about regenerative agriculture, where you build the fertility of your soil in order to, for resilience, for sustainable production, etc. So at the end now, it will reduce with time. The cost of input will reduce, it will reduce so much. So, but it needs, proper, people will need proper training as to how this work. Otherwise, you say it doesn't work. It's like you get a particular product, you don't have the manual. You press and it's electronic. You press and press, and when you press, it got spoiled. You say, that one has not done well, and then you call the whatever. Did you follow the manual? Which one are you talking about? That's where they know how to use it, etc. They say, I don't know the manual. I can't even read a light. All I knew that I saw the data, I couldn't press it. So that has been our problem when it comes to applying, natural or agroecological inputs in our country. That's the major problem. So it's not the problem of the producers, but it's actually misapplication, by the users. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that, Prof. That was very elaborate. I'm really appreciative of your insight today. They've been very deep and very educating, and took quite a bit of learning from what you said. And to the audience, the basic thing, especially you seeking to practice organic system, is to actually strive for knowledge. Like they said, knowledge is liberating, information is powerful, right? So as much as possible, try to have a deep understanding of what you are trying to do, right? And as you can see, also that Prof was able to, accept his um not knowing about it in depth before and he went to have more education on it. So it shows that is a practicing farmer, he's got immense understanding about what he professes, teaches, lectures, and all that. So this is the sort of quality that you want to embody, and this is a way that you can actually lend your voice and action to actually promoting organic, healthy food system, and approach proceed to the last question of the day, Prof. And I just want you to give our listeners one key message to our listeners, to farmers, consumers, policymakers, on informed GMO choices and embracing organic futures. Just uh, one key message for them.
Thank you, my host. Well, my key message is that the issue of healthy food consumption towards healthy living um, is the responsibility of every citizen of our country, Nigeria, not just Nigeria, wherever you are based. First, desire it. Two, take appropriate steps, intentional steps in achieving it. And third is that lend your voice as an individual to the process of getting this achieved beyond what you want, what you consume. Let it go beyond you. Because if you don't, it is possible that the poison that you guide at home may be what will be used to serve you in one occasion,
Hmm.
soon. So we got to be careful and intentional, about healthy food consumption. We say no to GM, because of the fact that they don't have sufficient policies, protection in place to safeguard us from, the likely harmful effects, those that we know and those that may come by reason of, the genetical process. the transformation of the genes that we don't know of yet. So, but it is prevention is better than control. Let us prevent evil because the control may be irreparable or too costly. Thank you.
Um, Thank you so much, Prof, for that. The submission was succinct. I really, like that and very appreciative of that. So that would be my last question, and I will be rounding up every uh, conversation today now. But just to give you some resources that you can actually peruse at your convenience to have more knowledge on GMO and agroecology alternative to actually ensure healthy and sustainable food system. We have a very comprehensive publication from Prof. Olubenga. I've attached the link here. It's on ResearchGate. You can go on and read it. And I've also attached rather a write up by me on GMO and GMO issues in Nigeria to actually gain understanding of what is happening, what has been happening, and what is shaping the current conversation and the future of GMO regarding the application, adoption, controversy, and all that hate your balanced understanding and informed decision making. And lastly, on that, you can also follow us on YouTube on this page. We are just going this page, and but we'll be very active on Spotify and the Last Giddy Farmer podcast. You would see the link here. You can follow that and have um insight into some other conversation, very interesting conversation that we've had on broad topics, on topic that people don't dare, to assess for lack of depth, breadth, understanding, and also, the resources to pull it out, like this particular conversation that we're having today, And so I thank you so much for that. So I go to the brief wrap. We've discussed GMO today. I'm talking about what GMO itself is. The main issue is the transgene itself, having to transfer gene one from a different life form, saying like from bacteria to another different life form, is entirely like a multicellular organism like human being, right? So it raises issue, um, and also removing from the DNA strand, the genes, and adding new genes that totally uh, reshape the composition and physical expression of that particular crop or seed, right? So we also assess the implication of these, related to debilitating diseases like cancer, like diabetes. We've been consuming wheat in the past. Our forefathers they never had increased risks of diabetes, not until recently. Perhaps our immune system are not recognizing the new elements in those food. So it's giving us allergies and different autoimmune diseases, right? So these are for consideration, but we didn't leave it at that. We also consider the ecological risks itself to our local seed and food seed land sovereignty, right? The GMO itself polluting the local seed, supply, where we don't have purity rather in the gene pool of our seeds. So that's a really huge problem. And we also consider other implication with GMO adoption, not necessarily to all this, like the issue of super weeds and um, increased resistance of the pests and diseases that keeps us having to improve our researches and all that. So these are some of the things that we consider. We also consider, the infrastructure for biosecurity traceability in the world, and looking at more importantly developing and emerging economies that don't really have the wherewithal to actually properly vet and prevent the adoption where there is risk, right? But we found out that it's not really about the big companies because they are able to sponsor researchers, sponsor scientists, but we also have saboteurs internally, working hand in hand, and in most uh, cases, we have those that are meant to actually protect and secure, these foods, the seed actually in bed with those people, right? So we are calling for balanced security, informed communication, timely communication as well, because we see that people are being left in dark as well. They don't really know what is being done. They just see that everything is being approved. Could there be more participation and transparency with these processes, so that people can know? And at the end of the day as well, could there be proper labeling of this food for people to know what they are eating? People that don't want to eat it, they know that this is it and they stay away. People that want to eat it, fine. That's the case, right? So we look at all this and also look at the place for agroecology itself, where Prof mentioned, quite a number of alternatives that we can actually, you know, adopt, like conventional breeding, hybridization, all these that I'm not able to mention now, right? That we can actually adopt, and he also advised on how we can individually, contribute to this action, growing our own foods, proper understanding of what we are, um, the system that we are adopting, the organic system as well, and also, you know, um lending voice to it as much as possible. So that would be where we end it. But I would say that we should keep up the work to promote healthy and sustainable food system and ensure appropriate information and education. That is what this podcast is about and is doing. We are happy to be a part of that. Professor Olugbenga, are you with me, sir? I think he's
No, I'm still
experiencing.
here. I'm still
Okay, sir.
here.
So I'm done with my presentation. So I just want to reassure you that we, as the Lasgidi Farmer Podcast, and I, Toiba Aziz, as the Lasgidi Farmer, is also passionate about this. Doing my own cultivation and also helping to uh, balancedly and honestly enlightening people. So I'm just looking at how the Last Lady Farmer podcast and I, as a farmer, could key into what Orain and Nohara is doing, that we can better help to ensure, these pushing this
Okay.
positive narrative and conversation
Okay.
forward.
Thank you very much. Well, and I think it would be good if we start with the different ways. For Orin is a coalition. Orin itself is not an organization. It's a coalition of organizations, focusing on organic and agroecology. So if, for example, if you are a sole farmer and then you are, maybe you may join a group, because ORAIN is not does not identify or relate to individuals. It relates to organizations, whether farmer groups or registered organizations. They can be members. It's not about individuals. So, which means then you can be part of. Maybe you can raise groups. And you can have your farmer groups that can now be the member of ORE, because you must be doing something related, to that. Secondly, with NOARA, which is Network of Organic Agriculture Researchers in Africa, you can collaborate with them so that this you can have issues. We can organize for you those. You can interview people across different countries, maybe just on monthly basis. Different perspectives like this one. It may be on different topic, it may still be on the same topic. What is it like in Ghana, for example? If you have, what is it in Ethiopia? What is it in Egypt? What is it in Morocco? what is it in? So we have members, we have representatives in about 24 countries of Africa, and we're getting more. What is it in South Africa? What is it in Senegal? So that you can interact, with them on this, and then Noara can make it, can popularize it, so that you can have. So that's a quick collaboration with Noara, that Noara can engage. So that can also be a good platform. So you can have different topics, different whatsoever, and then if we have thematic areas, in Noara for that you can collaborate, so you can discuss with them, and then you can come up with a regular presentation. The component there that Noara will appreciate is that yes, it is possible that if you engage AI, and you can get a summary of the discussion, that can go into the news article of Noara. So that would be a win-win thing. So it is heard, but the summary, the AI summary, would be useful for the newsletter of Noara. So, and of course, it will be that as interviewed, by your organization, and that's all. So,
Yeah.
which is a
Yeah.
win-win thing, So we
Yeah.
can actually collaborate on the bigger scale.
Yeah. Oh, all right. Thank you so much for that. I'm really appreciative of all the insight today. It's been really very educating. For me personally, I'm sure that it's the same for the audience as well. So, I can't just say thank you enough, and I must present it to the public that he was actually I was actually one of his students back then at the University of Ibadan, and I'm very happy about his strides, his achievements, and I'm able to actually invite him and interview him, and he's so humble to come onto the podcast. I'm very, very grateful, sir. I really
Thank you,
appreciate
my brother.
this, and I
Thank
hope that
you.
we continue more conversation of this that is deeply impacting. So we proceed to ending the virtual conversation, and um, we commence later. Thank you, sir. China.